Hello and welcome to the Blood Red's Morning Bulletin. I'm joined by my fellow Liverpool.com writer Keifer, and we're talking about Neco Williams after his brace for Fulham last night. Now, Keifer, have you seen much of Neco since he's moved to Fulham?
I can't say I've watched him every week, but obviously in the last couple of days I've seen some of the clips that I've done some of the rounds on social media. Obviously on Saturday, he hit the crossbar, didn't he, from near enough his own half, and that seemed to go pretty viral. And then obviously last night he got a brace against Swansea, and the second one was obviously a really good finish, especially for a fullback. So it's nice to see him getting that attention and kind of attraction that maybe he didn't get at Liverpool, because obviously he was in Trent's shadow, but obviously he seems to be flourishing at Fulham. Obviously we know he's an attack-minded fullback. I think most fullbacks now are, when you come through a club like Liverpool. And obviously Fulham are, high scoring, free scoring, aren't they? They're doing well at the top of the Championship. Obviously, you only need to look at the amount of goals that Mitrovic scored for them. I think he's broke the Championship record now, hasn't he? So, he's always going to, get chances and probably have to do more attacking than defending over there. But yeah, like I say, rightly so that he's starting to maybe get some of the plaudits that he probably craved while he was at Liverpool. He probably didn't get.
Yeah, like you say, he's got, I think, 2 goals and 2 assists in 7 games, which is pretty good for a fullback. 4 goal contributions in 7 games, not too bad, and almost Trent-esque in some ways. Those would be numbers Trent would be proud of himself. Do you think at Liverpool he's always been sort of harshly and unfairly criticised because of the fact that there is an insanely talented right back of a similar age right ahead of him?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've seen that in a couple of positions, haven't we? It's even with Kelleher at the minute. Obviously he won Liverpool the cup the other day, and obviously people are saying that he might need to leave, and Klopp's maybe said that he might need to leave, and it just shows the depths that Liverpool are able to boast, this kind of golden generation. And there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, especially since the West Ham game on Saturday, about Trent and what is his position. People are quite clearly know he's not. He is a fullback on the team sheet, but it's kind of is that to the extent he's just a fullback, and because he does tend to come inside into those centre midfield positions, doesn't he, during the game, and obviously Neco isn't Trent, and I don't think that's a sly on him. I think that they're two pretty different footballers. I think Neco, whenever I saw him kind of playing for Liverpool, I think he preferred the overlap. This season we've seen Trent, he prefers to come inside and do something of an underlap. But yeah, I think there's always going to be a drop off, isn't there? Whoever's going to be replacing Trent or covering for Trent when he's not around or he's injured, or and the drop off is going to be pretty noticeable just because of how key they are to how Liverpool play. And it's the same on the other side, but obviously credit to Costas, he's come in and he's kind of closed that gap, hasn't he, between Robertson and other deputies we've had in the past. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with Neco, because like I say, he's obviously clearly a talented footballer. We've seen that in the couple of weeks he's had at Fulham so far, but he's just obviously not Trent Alexander-Arnold, which again is no sly off his name, but it probably means that he might have to go elsewhere on a permanent basis if he does kind of want that regular game time that he's getting at the minute at Fulham and seems to be grasping with both hands.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he decides, because at Liverpool, when he has come in, he's looked good, especially this season. He's had a few shaky games, maybe last season. I think fans were sort of very harshly critical of him on social media, and I think you saw him losing a little bit of his confidence after that. But he seems to be flourishing at Fulham now, and the loan spell, if anything, to revive that confidence has done him a world of good, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously it was the deal done late in January, and I don't know if the deal was, I would have expected him to, maybe go to a bottom half Prem side. Maybe I think he's more than good enough to play Premier League football, but potentially Liverpool had other suitors, but maybe it was part of a bigger picture, part of the Carvalho kind of puzzle that made Liverpool want to send him to Fulham, and maybe Neco, it was a good sell for him that he'd play minutes at the top of the Championship and probably be promoted to the Premier League with Fulham come May. But yeah, I think again, like you touched on there, he did get pretty unfairly scrutinised at times last season. I think he, I think there was a time where he came off social media, didn't he, for a while? I can't remember what game that was after, and then I remember there was the game at Fulham at Anfield, the 6th in a row, the 6th home defeat in a row, I should say. I think he started that game, and I don't think he covered himself in glory. But then at the time, you look at that Liverpool side, and no one really was covering themselves in glory for a number of reasons. And he's playing a backline without Van Dijk is, as we saw for anyone, it was tough at times last season. But yeah, it's as I say, fair props to him because he's clearly a talented footballer. We've seen how keen the Wales manager Rob Page is with him. I think he's said a few times earlier this season that he's a fantastic player, but he does need his best players to be playing minutes regularly, which is obviously completely understandable. And for him, he's probably eyeing up a World Cup come Qatar. Obviously, I know they're in the qualifiers against Scotland, but he's going to only help his country's chances of getting there if he's going to be playing week in, week out. And he can take that form into the qualifiers. So yeah, we certainly be interesting, like you say, to see what happens come the summer because there's a chance that Liverpool could recoup a decent fee for him. I think he's got 3 years left on his contract. I think it's 2025 he expires. So you'd think you could get something in the excess of 10, 12 million maybe for him, which for someone who's probably only played no more than 12 games for Liverpool, 13 games for Liverpool, it's probably a decent fee, isn't it? And it's one that all parties will probably go away happy with. But then the plus side of that is if he does fancy his chances of staying at Liverpool and fighting, you've got a right back who's hungry. He's just gone out. He's tasted first team football. He's obviously improved, and obviously he's kind of sent that message to Klopp and the rest of the first team staff. So I think it's got potential to be a win-win for Liverpool come the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've been really impressed by him at Fulham is I've just been looking at his data and I've watched him a few times defensively. He's looking very solid for Fulham. I think he's averaging over 8 defensive duels per 90 and he's winning 65% of those, which is a decent number. He's also making sort of around 5 interceptions per 90 as well, which is, again, very good for a defender. And like you say, if he does decide to stay, I think it will be of benefit to Liverpool. But then again, if he does leave as well, Liverpool will be entitled to a nice, hefty sum. I think the question that Liverpool will have to decide is whether they feel like they can find a better backup than Neco, because there's not that many out there, is there?
No, it's a difficult one, and I think it's the only way I could probably compare it to is being like a third choice goalkeeper. It's kind of you've kind of got to almost be level headed enough to think, I might get a few trophies here, but I'm not going to be playing every week, and you got to find someone who's kind of got that balance, ambition, but also like happy to kind of not be too involved. And I think for someone like Neco, I think he's 22 or 21 or whatever, he's going to want to play football. And like I say, it's an exciting time, to be involved in Welsh football. So he's going to want to be part of that. Like I said, we know how keen the Wales manager is on him. So, I can't see why he'd be happy to come back to Liverpool, especially having that taste of first team football that he's had, this second half of the season. But as you say, if Liverpool do get a healthy sum for him, they could reinvest that in someone who potentially slightly older than Trent, who's maybe not the twilight of their career, but maybe getting to that stage who's happy to, take on less game time. You've got Conor Bradley coming through the ranks. Again, he could be one in a couple of years who, I know there's high hopes for him at Liverpool, but if he's a young, ambitious lad who's come through the academy, I doubt he's going to want to sit on the bench, for 3, 4, 5 years covering Trent, especially given the age Trent is at the minute. He's 23. He's got at least 10 years left, and I imagine most of those will be at fullback. So it's a pretty long term thing. So it is a difficult one for Liverpool. Like I say, I think they got the left back one pretty spot on with Costas and the way he's kind of come in this season and kind of pushed Robbo. Obviously, he's never going to dislodge him on a permanent basis, but you'd think if Liverpool would get something similar, something that involves a low transfer fee, and it's maybe someone unproven from like a distant European league, they can develop him, hone him, and then if you're competing on all fronts, it's an easier sell than if you just got a squad of 13 players and you're like, we're only going for the 2 big cups. But if you can prove success in the domestic leagues, it's gonna. People, if Neco does stay, you can sell that to him. Look, we've won the FA Cup, we've won the League Cup, or, this is how far we're going in the Champions League. So I think, a lot will depend on what happens between now and the end of the season, because I think, obviously, we know that Klopp likes a small squad. Obviously, this year, I think it's a bit bigger than he may have liked. We've seen that he's had some big decisions to make in recent weeks. Maybe that squad gets trimmed again in the summer. I'd be surprised if it didn't. So he's going to have to find that perfect balance of who to bring in, and it's going to have to be the right person, because you don't want someone coming in sitting on the bench who's going to be moaning, So it is a difficult one, and it's it's one that Liverpool might not get right straight away. It might take they might have to bring in a couple of players and eventually get it right in a couple of years. But yeah, it is a difficult one for them.
I think the advantage that Neco has is the fact that he can potentially even play as a right winger. We've seen him play that role for Liverpool and for Wales as well. He's played on the left, I think, for Wales as a left winger. And obviously that could increase his game time because Liverpool do not really have too many backup options for Salah at the moment. Do you think he could transition into a winger, based on his stats as well? His 2 goals last night as well. Could you see that happening?
Well, based on the second goal he scored last night, yeah, I think he'd probably fancy himself as a winger, wouldn't he? But I mean, obviously, what the last high-profile Wales player to that was Gareth Bale, wasn't it? He obviously famously went from left back to left wing and then kind of just skyrocketed over a 3 or 4 5-year period and became one of the best players in the world. I'm not saying that the same is going to happen for Neco, but obviously the blueprint is certainly there, and it's certainly not uncommon, given how Liverpool play. The fullbacks, like I say, they are like playmakers. I think it was the Leicester League Cup quarterfinal he started, didn't he, on the right? So again, if something like that happened, I mean, obviously it's not the same as Salah, and again, there is obviously a noticeable drop off. But obviously, I think, I mean, Klopp didn't do it since, but it's certainly an option that's crossed his mind, hasn't it? Obviously, if he's already done it. I mean, I think he probably fancy himself as a right back long term. I think driving from deep, whenever I've seen him, that's when he looks better, and obviously kind of crossing from deep as well. I think his delivery is a bit better than it is maybe from further up the field. But yeah, for certain, he's got a great skill set, and I'm sure he could turn his hand to many positions. And with a team like Fulham, where you are by far and away the best team in that division, it's the same thing with Trent. He's probably not playing as a fullback at the minute. He's probably playing as something like a right midfielder, and probably making those overlapping runs into like a right wing position, if you want to call it. So yeah, I'm sure it won't be too dissimilar to what he's doing at the moment, but probably not one for the long term. But you wouldn't want to rule it out, would you?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see what does happen to him and how he gets on for the rest of the season. That about wraps up this morning bulletin. Make sure you check out the rest of the written content and the rest of the Blood Reds content going up today. Thank you for tuning in, guys.